Dean, that is, if you're a guitar player, that's one of the songs
One of the
that you
oddest
gotta
intros you've ever heard.
Well, if people haven't already realized, we are here with the incomparable Dean Parks, an amazing session musician that played with the likes of Steely Dan, among many other amazing musicians, which we'll cover today, from Stevie Wonder to Toni Braxton to Eric Clapton and Babyface, and well beyond. That is just a smidgen of the total amount of just amazing artists that you've played with. Thank you so much, Dean, for agreeing to let us interview you today.
My pleasure.
And as we just heard from 1977, the song Josie from Steely Dan, I want to waste no time getting into the details. That session, you obviously played on several songs on Asia, this being one of the big hits on that album. What can you tell us about the session? What can you tell us about the gear, working with Donald Fagen and Walter Becker?
Well, working with them was an enigma always, because they weren't sure what they wanted either. They were listening to their ideas that they did on a demo. I did the rhythm track chart for this, so I heard their demo. And basically every important musical element was there in the demo. It was just Donald singing live, I assume, while he's playing a Wurlitzer, and Walter on pick bass. And but that intro was on there. He played it on his Wurlitzer, and he gave me a little sheet of the voicings so that I would have the voicings he had. And then I did rhythm charts that everybody could navigate. And so the equipment, so think back when there was no chorus unit. The first thing that happened in the music business where there was a chorus unit was the JC 120, I think it was, the Roland Jazz Chorus. They had one there, and I plugged into it, and they wanted me to play the part through that, and they mic'd both speakers so they'd have stereo chorusing. So I've simulated that with a little chorus unit there. But they also didn't want me to play both parts. So I did that on the tracking. And on an overdub, as soon as we got a track, I did the...
Wow.
So that's when you hear some little flamming in there, it's because there are two parts, but it's not a doubled part. This one part is the lower part, one part is the upper part.
So do you think that was deliberate, or that just kind of was the...
They had that in their mind. There was no negotiating about it, or they weren't in doubt about what they wanted to do. They knew they wanted to do that. So I haven't checked the panning on the original to see whether they panned. I don't think they did. I think they took a stereo of everything, just laid it on top of it. So I'm not sure why they wanted it separate, but maybe they tried panning things and decided it sounded better all up front.
When you did that session, were they in the room and kind of just saying what they wanted? Or?
Yeah, they were in and out of the room and mostly in the booth. Donald had done a couple of scratch vocals maybe with us while we played, so we know the context. But most of it, we were just doing the track, reading the chart, which was 2 lines, and it was kind of common in those days. The top line is any voicings the keyboard would have, and this part, I had Victor Feldman do that on a Rhodes as well, so we're doubling that little part. So we could read that part. If there's any other stray rhythm parts in a different kind of a session, the slash marks, the rhythms, and the chord changes would be in the middle between the two staves, and the lower staff would be the bass part. So then everybody's looking at the same thing, but you have a separate part to zero in on if you're a bass player or a guitar player or a keyboard player. And and then if you make changes, it's the same. Everybody's looking at the same piece of paper, so it makes it a quick way to work through.
And that wouldn't have been with the click track, any of this stuff.
No,
predated.
We had to make the beat. Yeah, that's the getting one that's steady all the way through was part of the game. Yeah,
and that wouldn't have been a particularly easy thing, because when Jim Keltner comes in, I mean, that timing had to be pretty perfect when he starts coming in.
Yeah, we just listen to what he's doing, and the fill in the middle. Boom. Well, the only person with him is Chuck Rainey, so the downbeat, Chuck was right next to him,
Right.
as close as this. I'm sure watching his foot made sure that he hit the downbeat.
Yeah, boy. That must have been something. And so were all those guys was this done live or were...
Yeah, 4-piece.
Okay.
Victor Feldman on Rhodes, me on guitar, and Keltner and Chuck Rainey.
Chuck Rainey. Gosh. Talk about like heavy hitters, man. It was just like, I mean, just crazy careers between all of you guys.
Oh, yeah, no, completely. Well, we were all thrilled to be playing with each other, for one thing, because as many players as there are, when you're in a particular combination, well, that's unique, you know?
Yeah.
I've never done another session with those 3 guys in
Yeah.
the same room, right? I never played with Keltner and Chuck Rainey at the same time.
Yeah.
Except for that tune. So
wow.
So we're starstruck by each other, or at least I was. I was a big Keltner fan.
Oh man, yeah, yeah.
And maybe I think I suggested him for that session.
Yeah, well, I mean, it worked out. I mean, there's everything about that song is just absolute perfection.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing.
And on that, did you play the solo on that too, or is that
No,
Walter?
I think that's Walter on the solo, and I think that the little 3-part thing, I think that's Larry Carlton.
Okay,
doing that.
Yeah, it's incredible, and so you wrote out the charts for that. It's just such a great song. I mean, well, thank you for your contribution.
You're welcome. My pleasure. It's great to still be playing it. So
and you used the 335 on that one.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember anything specific about like the year, or was it just contemporary?
Probably 68.
Okay,
68. It had the coloring was kind of not dark like this. Kind of a lighter brown and the yellow.
Okay.
Sunburst.
Nice.
It had a thick neck.
Uh-huh.
We all loved Larry Carlton's guitar. It was just a magic guitar. And it had a little bit chunkier neck than we would have chosen.
Yeah.
So we were all kind of looking for guitars with chunky necks, or at least I was, to try to get that sustain that he had on his.
Yeah.
Which is so unusual for a 335, you know, because those can be clinkers.
Yeah. Yeah, and a 68 having a thick neck is unusual too, because usually they were kind of known to have these slimmer necks when it started getting into the late 60s.
Yeah, well, they're narrow necks.
Yeah.
They're not the dot neck size, but sometimes you get some
like deeper. Yeah. Well, I mean, his is the iconic 335 to have, I suppose, if you're going to go.
Right. Well, he's a pretty good guitar player as
well.
well.
Yeah, a few more lessons he might make it. You know, I want to stick with the Steely Dan thing, and I'm going to depart just momentarily from Asia, and we'll come back to it for Deacon Blues in a moment. But I want to talk to you about one of my favorite Steely Dan songs you played on, which was Haitian Divorce.
Oh yeah.
And so we're going to kind of go backwards a little bit in time. And that's on Royal Scam, right? That's got Talkbox on it. It's got some interesting stuff.
Yeah.
You played on that song.
I did.
I want to know about the session, the gear, what you can tell me about it.
So that was at a studio, ABC Dunhill. I don't know if it was still called that. I think it probably was. And I was working a session in Studio A, maybe, and they were recording in Studio D. Or whatever. And I just went in to visit them, and they just finished the track. So it was Bernard Purdy and Larry Carlton and Michael Mardian, Chuck Rainey, I believe. And they said, hey, come on in and listen to what we did. And so I'm just visiting their session. And Larry said, you want to play on the next one? And you can use my guitar. So I said, okay, that's good. And so that was Haitian Divorce was that one.
That's his 335?
It was his 335 doing the, let me turn off my chorus unit here. I just seen Bob Marley play on TV and realized that the classic reggae part was the second part of a full strum. He played like this, but he just did this silently.
Yeah.
And he fretted until he hit, and then at the very last minute, he would release the fret.
Yeah.
Did you get that little ghost?
Yeah.
That little ghost note. Anyway.
Yeah.
That was my first time to try that. So I did that, and then they called me back to do the solo. At a different session, I came back with my guitar.
Okay. Do you remember what amp you used, or was it just whatever Larry was plugged in?
It had to be my Fender Princeton.
Okay.
Princeton reverb.
Okay. So it's like
And that was, I came in the booth.
Mhm.
They were listening back through magnaplaners in those days, which is an electrostatic speaker that was as tall as a shower curtain.
Okay.
About this wide.
Yep.
And if you played them too loud, they would break, and you'd have to buy a new one for
Right.
$8,000 or whatever it was. But it sounded great, and so we set up, and I was in the room, and my amp was in another room with a long cable, and and I got overdrive sound. But Walter asked me, he said, "This is going to be a talk box thing. You want to do it? We have it here if you want to do it, or if you want, I'll do it later, and we'll just do the." And I said, "Yeah, you do it. I'll just do the guitar part." So I did it with a. Let's see if I can go to a different amp here. Yeah. It was kind of a sound like that.
Yeah.
Might have been on this pickup though. So you could tell how that would be a good trigger for the voice box thing.
Yeah. So the voice box thing was almost like he like reamped it or something like that.
I guess so. Yeah.
Yeah. So that would have been pretty advanced for that time.
Roger Nichols.
There wasn't so many ways to do it.
Roger Nichols could figure that out without a problem, right? Because it would have to be what would you do? You'd play it through the direct box, in reverse or something like that. So
on those parts though, I mean, you had to overdub that because I mean, like, who's playing drums on that one? That's Bernard Purdy.
I think, yeah.
So, I mean, like that had to be perfect because when it's doing sort of that descending thing, like you have to be right on with the drums on that. Like, there's no click on that.
But he's, listen to that drum track. It's just exquisite. And
oh my God.
There's, even when he's not playing the beat, there's cues about, he does timekeeping thing. He knows how to keep a rhythm section comfortable.
Oh, the drumming is like, it's amazing playing. Yeah.
So when we did the track, they wanted to do more takes, and Bernard said, "No, you got it. I got to make a call." He went down to the end of the hall and with the payphone and made a call.
Wow. And I guess
sure enough, it sounds fine, right?
Yeah, no, it sounds great. I guess he could get away with it.
He could.
Yeah,
he did. He wasn't. It wasn't a matter of discussion. That was the take. He wanted to be out there. So and I think that whole album maybe had a kind of a rollicking energy to it.
Mm-hmm.
He was the drummer on most of the stuff, if not all.
Yeah.
And I'm sure he had that attitude, like he's kind of falls forward with the time.
Yep.
And everybody reacts to it, and it's kind of exciting, right?
Yeah.
It's not so pristine that everything from then on has to be perfect.
Yeah.
Because it's got a little slosh built into it.
Yeah.
And I think it makes everybody loosen up.
Yeah. I mean,
it was extremely easy to play too, as far as this overdub part. It was not even it wasn't in one single take, but it was like, I didn't remember that line, so we had to stop every time that line came. And I'm going to do my little part of that, and then we go on from there.
Right.
But it wasn't a labor to get the feel.
Oh, the feel on that's incredible. I mean, that's like got such a great...
That's one of my favorite tunes of theirs, too, is the lyric and everything.
Yeah. And for the sound that was more like a lead tone type thing, do you remember did you use the Princeton also on that one, or you used something different?
Yeah, that's a Princeton.
Okay, and did you just crank it up more for the gain?
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like speaker distortion, no pedals?
There was no good pedals then for that, really.
And were you turning the reverb off typically on that? Okay.
I would never record with reverb.
Okay. Did you know that you were sitting on what you were sitting on when you were recording this stuff?
Well, we always knew from the first time we recorded with them, which was Pretzel Logic. That was well into their successful career.
Yeah.
They already done Do It Again and Reeling in the Years, and they were a hit band. We knew it was going to get airplay, and it was going to be heard. So we had faith, that it was going to be, everybody's on their best foot forward.
Yeah, well, I mean, they really created like a whole genre. I mean, and challenged, I think, people who were used to, the typical pop changes. It moved people forward. I think a lot.
Of that,
yeah, it's amazing. Well, I want to talk to you going forward again to Asia and talk about one of my all-time favorite songs you played on, which was Deacon Blues.
Right.
And so again, this was recorded at which studio was Asia at, or was it a combination?
Well, we did the tracks on Josie at Producer's Workshop,
Okay.
and that was right by the mastering lab, adjacent to the same building.
Okay.
Not a common place to do tracking, but
Yeah.
Bill Schnee was the tracking engineer, and he wanted to work there.
Okay.
That was a place that, there was a very brilliant team of audio engineers that were involved in the Sheffield direct-to-disc projects and everything, and those were all done out of there. So it's a room that they had all put together. He wanted to do it there. So that's where we did the tracking on Josie.
Okay.
On Deacon Blues, I can't remember. I didn't do another thing there with them. And I have a feeling it might have been back at Dunhill or one of those other studios.
Okay.
And I think they just asked me to come in for an overdub.
Okay.
On acoustic guitar. I wasn't there for the tracking, I don't think.
Okay.
I could have been.
Okay. Do you remember how much was kind of set in stone by the time that you were doing the acoustic overdub?
Well, it was at least a 4-piece rhythm section. And there's nothing written for me as an acoustic.
Okay.
It was just the changes.
Okay.
And whatever they had been looking at to do their parts. So I just worked the part so it would not be, I didn't even remember that song had an acoustic guitar before I saw my credit on there, and I listened to it. Oh, yeah, it seems like it's even, maybe they did 2 tracks of it.
Yeah.
Because it's strumming, but it's not strumming where other people are not playing. So it just makes it a glue kind of a thing.
Yeah, yeah. Do you remember what acoustic guitar you might have used on that?
That was probably a D18S.
Okay.
Because that's the one that I had gotten. That was the replacement to a guitar that had been stolen, which was the D28S. S model being the one that's peg.
Okay.
Pegs, like a classical type headstock, and joins at the 12th.
Okay.
Kind of a bigger. It didn't have as much boom. I thought it was a better recording guitar because you could mic it up close, and the low strings didn't have the D28, overriding G string resonant, G note resonant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would you object to playing a little bit of your acoustic part on that?
Well, I'll have to listen to it, and
all right,
and
we'll take what we can get. We'll take what we can get.
So.
All right, so we got our acoustic guitar set up now, ready for a little Deacon Blues. You've written out the chart. I will let you do the rest, Dean.
Just chord changes and my approximation of what I just heard, because I haven't seen this thing for
almost 40 years, right?
Yeah. So forth.
Yeah.
So they asked me to do this on several tunes just to, maybe it's because of Rikki Don't Lose That Number.
Right.
Because I did that, but the rest of it, I played rhythm through the whole thing. It kind of melds with the piano. So you've got the piano, Michael Martin, same pianist here, and his voicings are so open, and he's not a stabber, he's kind of a flowing thing, and it just seems to fit with the acoustic guitar.
I had no idea that you played in Rikki Don't Lose That Number.
Oh, yeah.
Well, since we're on that topic really quickly, can you tell us anything about that session?
Well, that was on the first set of sessions we did. We did 1 week with them. That's the first time they used studio players, really, in Pretzel Logic. And so Michael Martin was the keyboard player, and Jim Gordon was the drummer. Chuck Rainey was the bass player. He was kind of new in town. He had been a New York guy. So I think that's probably the first time I met Chuck Rainey. And I played with the others before. Rick Derringer was there also. And so we went through a bunch of their songs. But this one was, they always considered it an acoustic song, and I did it in a booth live with everybody else. And then we got the track on it. And the solo, That solo, I thought Rick Derringer did it after the session. He was overdubbing some stuff. But, maybe that was outtakes. Maybe they didn't use it because I've seen it attributed to Skunk Baxter.
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't do that part, but I did the, those crawling things in the chorus.
On an electric guitar?
On an electric guitar, on an overdub later.
Do you remember what guitar you used?
Yeah, it was a Les Paul, black Les Paul 69.
Oh, wow. And do you remember what amp?
It had to be my happy little Princeton amp.
Same one that
cranked up.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it probably was the same one, though we would, sometime we would all have more than one.
Yeah. Wow. And then you, of course, had the overdub with the acoustic.
The tracking was with the acoustic.
Tracking was with the
acoustic. In a booth, a separate.
Can you just play it for me one more time, Dean? I just love that part.
What?
Wow. It's such a great song, It's like
it is another good one.
And how much of that was written out?
This was written out, and then the rest was chord changes.
Yeah. And did you do the chart for that one, or
no? Michael Mardian did that one.
Okay.
Same configuration, 2 stabs with the rhythm changes in the middle.
That's incredible. That's incredible. I love that song. Oh my gosh. I mean, one final thing I'll say about Steely Dan before we move on is you really had to be super special to them, because there seemed to be a revolving door of guitar players that worked there, and you are kind of a mainstay on those albums, and Larry Carlton, and otherwise it's pretty variable who might be playing on it, and so they must have really. Donald and Walter must really love what you were bringing to the table.
I guess I was out of the blue. I was not close with any of those guys, either of those guys.
So you were still their first call.
Yeah, but I became closer with Walter later when he started producing in the 90s.
Yeah.
He hired me on a thing, and I invited him to dinner, and we became good friends, and got to really know him.
Yeah, well, such a big loss for music.
Completely.
And thank you for your contribution on that. It is some of the my favorite songs. These are the songs I'm going to play for my 1-year-old son, and hope that he appreciates Steely Dan as much as I do.
Yeah, great.
But since we're on an acoustic right now, I want to fast forward decades in your career and go to one of my favorite songs from the mid-'90s, which was "Change the World," which was. Eric Clapton, of course, Kenny Babyface Edmonds, and mega hit. I think it was featured on a John Travolta movie, Phenomenon.
That's right.
And that was a part of the soundtrack there. And you played acoustic guitar. I think everybody presumed it was Eric Clapton.
Yeah.
And Dean, this was the guitar that was used on Change the World, correct?
Yeah, that's right.
And what's the model of this?
It's a Dragge.
Okay.
He made it for me. I had just had a Santa Cruz guitar with a mahogany neck, spruce top, Brazilian rosewood, ebony.
Okay.
And but I talked to Peter Dragge. He was at a session, a James Newton Howard session, and I told him about that. I really thought a guitar. I'd just been to Hawaii with working on Walter Becker's album, and met a guy named Keola Beamer who had guitars that were all a huge, chunky neck, because he's a big guy. Mm-hmm. But I heard it on the radio, and it was a tremendous sounding guitar, just great sustain. So I didn't have Peter build the guitar. He came back in a year, and he built the guitar out of the same materials as what I liked on the D28 Santa Cruz, but with a big neck, thinking he'd make it overly big so that we could hone it down to size.
Yeah.
But it sounded so good. right. It's got. It's kind of got a lot in there, and I was afraid to take it on sessions for a while because it was such a big neck. I thought, this is going to mess me up, but it plays so good.
What parts did you play versus what Clapton played?
Yeah, well, I was, so Babyface was there producing, and he had all of us rhythm players come at different times. It started with me and a drum machine, and he came up with a little. Now, this demo has almost the same part. I sat across from Babyface working out the details of what he wanted and what voicings he wanted here and there. And then I did the take and doubled it, I think. And then maybe JR was next on drums.
Okay.
And then maybe Nathan East was next on bass, and then Michael Thompson on electric guitar.
Yeah, he kind of put in the big pads and stuff like that.
Yeah. Beautiful production. But it was done at the same studio at virtually the same time, but not really.
What
we
studio
all did
was that?
overdubs. That was Record Plant.
Okay.
In L.A. Yeah.
Wow. And so he had most of this, I guess, he was showing you what he did, and then did you just chart it? Or?
I just learned it, I guess he had written out a chord sheet on it. I don't think I wrote it out. Seems like he had something. But there's something... And then in the song, the bass part didn't move. Time later, was that
right before the solo, probably.
Yeah. Eric wasn't there. It's just us building the track, and then he did all the solo parts, all the lines that you hear. Are Eric.
Yeah, so he just did the solo, and that was kind of his contribution.
Yeah,
in addition
I
to
think
the
so. Babyface played the thing really well as well.
Yeah.
And who knows if they didn't double things, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But he played it left-handed.
Yeah, upside down and left-handed.
Yeah, he just had such a string of hits during that era. It was just like in the mid '90s. It was just everybody was.
Unbreak My Heart was another one, right?
Right. So maybe this is a logical segue into Toni Braxton. Who was also part of LaFace at that time, and Unbreak My Heart was just a mega hit. I think that was her second album. I think.
Maybe.
And you used acoustic, but it was a nylon string.
So
should we transition? We can talk about that song.
Yeah.
All right, let's do it. So we've changed guitars. We have now a nylon string guitar, and this is what you used for the Toni Braxton Unbreak My Heart.
Yeah.
Tell us just a little bit about the guitar.
Well, this is made by a Fort Worth, Texas guitar maker, Earl Prince. And after I'd been in town in L.A. for a couple of years, I went back to him. We loved his guitar making. He made steel string acoustics. Stephen Bruton had one, maybe T-Bone had one, I'm not sure. But great maker. But I wanted a nylon string. the studio players in Dallas, there was one, Lee Robinson, that was a great classical recording guitarist, and he had two guitars. He had a Ramirez, and then he had some little flamenco guitar that was extremely easy to play. So I borrowed both of those guitars from Lee and took them to Earl Prince and said, can you make me all the materials of the Ramirez, but the size of the little flamenco guitar? You can feel how easy it is to play compared to a regular nylon acoustic, right? It's not such a thick neck. It's wide enough for you to make your, it's basically the dimensions of that flamenco guitar, and that made it really easy to play, it like an electric sort of. So, and he made one, and that's what I used as my main acoustic on nylon ever since. So it was this guitar, and the track already existed on Unbreak My Heart, and so it was an overdub with me and David Foster. Because David Foster was co-producer on that. The bass was there, but I think it was just me and David Foster.
And all written out already, or?
No, it was a Foster rhythm part, which looked a lot like this.
Right.
Just chords, and cymbals,
skeleton.
And then I could hear what it was, and he thought would be kind of a nice pulse for it.
Yeah.
It's a track about that.
Yeah.
So it was like so on and so forth. So we did a track, I think maybe doubled it.
Yeah.
And then there was the solo part. And the way we did that is I started the solo. I played a solo all the way through. And then using that as the start, and maybe the opening line is the original pass
of the solo.
And David would suggest a line or alteration to a line, and then I would come up with another thing. So it was not a long solo, but it's definitely constructed like a composition, but it's made up of improvisation, which is often the way I work when I'm doing tracks at home as well. As I start improvising, then I think, if it had gone there, okay, well, I've got the same setup, and you can do it, and you compose a solo out of your best ideas,
And I noticed that you're using a pick when you're playing this. Was that typical of how you would approach?
Tedesco always used a pick. I think that Tommy Mottola in New York, who was or is it Tony Mottola? Sorry. He was a famous studio player that did a lot of the nylon string romantic stuff. And I think they all used picks as well. I didn't have, so I've got nails here, acrylic nails, but not here.
Right.
So I can do flesh if I want to do flesh.
Yeah.
Or I can do this as opposed to a thumbnail.
Right.
And the regular hybrid. It's very strong. So you can work all day on an acoustic steel string, and it doesn't shred, it lasts. But I can chime in with this if I want a slightly softer sound. But if it's mostly with the pick, and the pick I found that does that the best with the least amount of little ghost note,
pick notes,
or artifact, is this little 1 millimeter Clayton.
Huh.
I think it's Delrin, I'm not sure, is the material. But thinner is more pick noise, and thicker is more of a different kind of pick noise.
Yeah.
But 1 millimeter, 1.00 is the way it is. Seems to be the one that's most like fingers.
Well, you heard it here first. And this guitar sounds incredible. Is there anything else that this was used on that
Well, that little, the little logo, the Dreamworks logo with the kid fishing.
Yeah.
Something like that.
It's
used on that.
And then there's strings that kind of come in behind it.
Yeah.
And so this was the guitar for that. This is the Dreamworks guitar. Wow. All right. Well, then, heard by everyone then.
Yeah, that's right.
Wow.
That's probably more people heard that than any other thing.
Probably. I mean, the how ubiquitous.
All over the world.
Yeah. Wow. Right? So, we've got to talk about Toni Braxton. We've talked about Steely Dan. We've talked about Babyface and Eric Clapton. I know our chronology today is all over the place. I want to go backwards to talk about arguably one of the best records ever made is Stevie Wonder songs "The Key of Life." And you played on As. Now, you probably didn't use a nylon acoustic on that.
I did not.
You remember what you used?
He wanted a steel string acoustic. So my steel string acoustic had been stolen a couple of months before. I hadn't found a replacement yet, so I had taken my old Martin D35, 12.
A 12-string Martin.
12-string Martin, which had already been reinforced with a fretboard this thick, just so it wouldn't warp because it was having warping problems. And I strung it as a 6, and then here Stevie Wonder wants me to play a part, and I just horsed through it. I think it was in B minor too.
Should we go to the steel string?
Okay.
We can hear it on the real deal.
Sure.
All right. We have our steel string acoustic back, and we're going to play through a little bit of As. But before we do, I want to just ask, how did you get the call for this session? What were kind of the specifics? We know about the guitar was a 12-string converted to a 6-string. But tell us about the story.
I've got a call through the Motown contractor, Ben Barrett, and Stevie Wonder session at, I believe it was at midnight or 11 p.m. at Crystal. And, so I got there, and no Stevie, but he was getting the mix up. I heard the thing as it was all done. I mean, it sounded like for the whole thing. The Herbie Hancock solo and everything was on it. I don't know why exactly he wanted to add acoustic, but that was the deal. And I basically waited a couple hours, and then Stevie showed up about 1 a.m. And they had a good chart for it, and did no instruction as to if he wanted strumming or picking. I think I probably ended up doing whatever. And okay, so we're doing the take, and at about 5:45, 5 minutes and 45 seconds, he came on the talkback without stopping the tape, said, "Oh, take a solo. So there I'm on this big baseball bat of a guitar. Soloing with Herbie Hancock on the thing. So that was a fun moment. But he did no other takes or anything. He says, "Fine, that's it." And you can barely hear it there. There's a similar situation on Inner Visions, on the song Visions. He'd wanted an acoustic on that album. And I brought a steel string acoustic and a nylon because I didn't know what he wanted. And so I did a take through on the steel string. And he says, "Is there anything else?" And I said, "Well, I have a nylon string. You might want to see how it sounds on that." okay. And he played the steel string while I was doing the nylon string, and end up with both on
Wow.
both first takes. That's
Wow.
I wish I could go back and tune it up a little bit.
But
But he likes first takes, is what
Yeah.
I learned from the Stevie Wonder
Yeah.
experience.
So time actually playing like on as, how much time do you think you actually like spent physically recording?
However long the track is, I think the track is about 6 minutes or something.
That
That's
is it. And the
push
first take
go.
solo.
Yeah, that's it.
Wow. That's
I
incredible.
mean, the solo was on the same track.
Yeah, yeah.
We didn't stop. He just added
So
it.
you just transitioned out of the rhythm part
Yeah.
and then just started just going for a solo.
Yeah.
Wow. That's incredible. And then just fighting it. Didn't anybody like look
It's
at
the
you
opposite of a Steely Dan record, for instance.
weird? Was anybody like looking at the guitar like, what is this
No.
thing?
No one gave us slightest bit of curiosity about the
Well,
guitar or anything.
That's incredible. Man, well, Dean, I am so appreciative of you going through just a fraction of your incredible career as a session guitarist. Before we finish today, though, I have a couple of questions for you.
Okay.
One thing that I've been doing with these interviews is taking a few pictures from back in history of some of these session
You
guitarists.
warned me about this.
And I wanted you to just explain maybe what was going on or anything that you remember about the photo. So I'm going to bring out my phone here and I'm going to show you a couple of shots, and I want you to just tell me what's going on in these particular photos. So the first of which, I believe it's the oldest of the photos, looks like a photo of you here. You got a chart. Your hair is long.
Right. That's me.
Do you remember roughly when this was?
Well, that's the guitar I played on Josie,
Okay.
number one. And, it could have been with the Crusaders, because I remember a camera hopping around there one time. Crusaders, about the time we were recording the B.B. King record, maybe.
So you could be sitting right next to Joe Sample.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Joe Sample's piano would have been over here.
Yep.
And the drums would have been over here, and the bass would have been here, which I think was Popwell, maybe.
What studio
maybe
was this?
maybe James Jamerson played a little bit on that album. You can check and see.
Okay.
So that was interesting. Yeah, and it could have been Paul Jackson also.
Okay.
Or sometimes there was two guitars.
Do you know what studio this would have been at?
Oh, don't know. No.
Yeah. All right, and then next one is you and the late great Walter Becker. You guys look like you have some Sadowski guitars there.
Well, that is definitely me sitting in on one of their live shows. This is probably the sound check.
You think this is 90s?
Yeah, definitely. It's when they were touring again, but early in their touring. Well, it's by the time John Harrington was the other guitar player.
Okay.
So it's one of the years where he was
and used
new.
the Guytron amp like you have here.
Yeah, that's where I saw the Guytron. Is for John Harrington.
Yeah, he makes
the sound is so good. Yeah. So and this is Walter's guitar. He lent me to for me to sit in. They brought out an amp and guitar.
Your Sadowski or his Sadowski.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so this has been 90s. And for the previous picture, when do you think that one was with the Crusaders? You think that was 70s?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely 70s. I would check probably the same time I did
Josie?
Josie.
So
that's 79. Yeah,
Yeah.
probably late.
And then here's the last one. I'll turn it this way just because of and it looks like Jay Graydon's in there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And you're bearded Dean Parks.
There I am.
And you remember anything about this?
Yes. This was our one live concert of a surf band that Jay Graydon started, Rake and the Surf Tones. And we all wrote surf songs for this thing. And this was at a club in Malibu, I believe.
And what guitar are you holding there?
I think that is a Gretsch Duo Jet, maybe.
And do you
Does that
remember
make
what
sense?
you played into? Like a Fender or something like that? It was surf music. It had to be something.
He may have even brought a surf amp, a Showman or something.
Okay.
But I don't know what it would have been.
So this is a live gig somewhere in
it's a live gig, and Tedesco had already had his stroke, but he had played on all the surf records. So Jay asked him, and he was in the audience.
Oh, nice.
Watching us.
And would this have been 90s, you think?
Yeah, probably so.
All right.
I'm guessing 90s.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Dean, thank you so much again for your time and just walking us through it. It's been such an honor to be here with you and just getting to hear you play the guitar and being this close to it. Thank you again
Oh,
for
thank you.
doing this.
My pleasure.
Yeah.